opportunity. This is what we are being taught. However, is this true today? Consider the story of a young American named Desmond when in 9th grade he learned about his country and how it was built on the hard work of immigrants and helping those in need. It inspired him. Similarly, Dr. King long ago mentioned that time can become the ally of social stagnation without hard work, and that time is always right to do what is right. I truly believe that Dr. King's disposal is ringing more true than ever as we face millions of families suffering through a civil war in Syria. The Syrian refugees need help, and if we want to live up to the ideals that our country was founded on, that Dr. King expounded on, we must rise to the occasion and act in such a way that is fair and true. June 19th, 1885, a gift of friendship arrived on Ellis Island from the French, the Statue of Liberty, and it reads, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shores, send these, the homeless, the tempest-tossed to me, and lift my lamp beside the golden door." Words from Desmond's teacher that he would never forget. So when later he heard kids in his class talking about how we should not be letting Syrian refugees into America, he immediately stood up and stated, "To those of you speaking out against the president's support of taking in refugees, please remember that this is a nation whose greatest prosperity was built on the hard work of immigrants. And watching the rise of what can only be described as xenophobia saddens me, because it leaves no room for dialogue, respect, or understanding. It is a modern example of the social stagnation that Dr. King warned us about. Understand that you are generalizing innocent families who have nothing. They are not terrorists, they are people in need of our golden door. There's a reason why they're called refugees. They're suffering in their country. Imagine you are living in a country under a vicious civil war. Which would you choose? And that is something we must consider as well. As Americans, we expect that our nation will always remain strong in the face of violence, but we would be foolish to believe that we are somehow invincible. So if in the most extreme situation we find ourselves war-torn and begging for mercy, where could we go after denying entry to individuals that ask the same? Every war is connected to some insecurity and greed, and I think it's fair to say, for the most part, that world peace is important to us all. True peace is formed when we care for one another and erase the social distance between countries. Only then can we extend our definition of community so that we include those in need within the U.S. as well as the tired and the poor outside of our border. This subject is one of controversy, but you must reconsider your generalization of millions of innocent people who have lost everything. We are writing history now. How do we want to be remembered? As those that lived up to Dr. King's ideals, or those who turned their backs on people when they needed us the most? Together, our change of mind could save so many lives. How do you think Martin Luther King would handle this Syrian refugee crisis? Well, after an ISIS member threatens to attack America, as he did France, I understand the difficulty in letting people from that country into ours and trusting them not to terrorize. President Obama recently said that the people who are fleeing Syria are the most harmed by terrorism. And it's very important that we do not close our hearts to these victims of such violence and somehow start equating the issue of refugees with the issue of terrorism. Unlike others who say, until we can sort out the bad guys, we must not be foolish, implying that if we let refugees in, there is some possibility of letting terrorists in as well. Even if there was some minor level of risk, is our hyped up fear for security more important than our humanity towards the Syrian refugees? U.S. refugee process is so long, so thorough, that it's probably the least efficient way for a potential terrorist to enter the U.S. Director of International Center for the Study of Violent Extremism, Ann Specker, asks, why would an ISIS terrorist sit and wait to be a refugee for 3 years to get into the U.S. when they can get a radicalized European citizen and fly here on a visa waiver and live here under the radar? ISIS is a very smart organization with so many different ways to enter into our country or create a stronghold for recruiting. The likelihood that ISIS would use the complicated and convoluted process we put up for obtaining refugee status is simply absurd. I hear people say, we need to take care of our own people, but we are one species sharing one profoundly interconnected world, and humans, all humans, are our people. When the oppressed and marginalized die because they are being oppressed and marginalized, the powerful are at fault. As many of you may have heard, a young Syrian child was found dead on a shore in Turkey. This 3-year-old Alon Kurdi would most likely still be alive today if his family would have been welcomed into Europe, Canada, or America. And I think the reason the world acted so viscerally to that image of a dead boy on the beach is because instinctively we all knew that his blood was on our hands. We have the ability to save innocent families and build a culture Dr. King would want it to be, or to betray the things that our country and King stand for. It's true that we all have the individual ability to make the world a better place, to do the right thing, get involved with this, and share the fact that people are dying, suffering, losing everything. We are judging them as killers. Now is the time to save lives. Now is the time to be aware of our inhumanity and xenophobia. By accepting refugees into our countries and integrating them into our societies, we have much to gain. There's only something to be lost if we ignore this crisis. More children are sure to die if we don't act with a sense of humanity and reason. While Desmond isn't a real person, his dream is shared by many young people in schools all over America. Dr. King believes that it comes through the efforts of individuals to fight the primitive forces of social stagnation. The time is always right to do what is right. So we must do what is right. We need to look at this old issue in a new way, not simply for today, but to make our tomorrows more rewarding, more fulfilling, and more compelling because of the change we make today. Consider again Desmond and his dream to keep America as a land with promise, opportunity, and a community that accepts the tired, the poor, and the huddled masses. With your help, we can think anew and act anew on the issue before us today. In 1957, Dr. King encouraged America to realize that life's most important question is, what are you doing for others? Which even 60 years later can become something for us all to ponder. Thank you.